For the past 6 seasons, the Western Conference has always been treated as an unbeatable postseason bracket unless you're a genuine quote-unquote contender. Unless you master the modern game like the 24 Celtics, no Eastern Conference champion has ever been treated like a dynasty in the making. Not only did the West have LeBron as well as Curry, Kevin Durant for a better part of the 2020s, they also had Kawhi for a stretch, Paul George, Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, and of course now, Shea and Wemby. Speaking of the last two, they were perceived as juggernauts. They were guaranteed victory in NBA Finals, no matter who won the conference finals, which was treated as the actual NBA Finals. But obviously, we know what happened. Now, when you look at all the big trade splashes, most of them lay within the Eastern Conference. Whether it's LeBron being heavily rumored now to return to Cleveland for a second time just now as I'm saying this, or Tyrese Halliburton's Indiana Pacers returning to contending mode next season, the Eastern Conference can now go bar for bar with the West, and I'd say it has the better depth and overall cast of franchises. I landed on starting with the Washington Wizards, as they are not only one of the teams I expect to catapult by 4+ spots in the standings, but they also recently drafted AJ DeBonta #1 overall in the 2026 NBA Draft. Coming off a season being the 15th seed and having less than 20 wins, there is no way that you can actually have that happen with a parity in the modern era, which obviously means that they are purposely tanking. And I'm not even all that sure of how many games were even purposely lost. They have a ton of high upside guys like Keyshawn George, Will Riley, and Bilal Coulibaly, but I would say they don't even really have a team as of right now. They just have a roster of youngsters, or whatever you want to use for the terminology. I've been saying this forever about taking franchises ever since I started watching the NBA. Trae Young is obviously going to need his shots and touches as a heliocentric guard. I assume you want Alex Lar to take another leap. Trey Johnson showed promise, so I'd assume you also want him taking shots and having his own touches and reps. Keyshawn George is a capable on-ball guy that needs a little bit of touches himself. And then on top of that, some other young talent. You have AJ DeBonta and Anthony Davis both needing shots and touches. I'm not saying it's impossible to be a good offense with the amount of reps that each player needs, but there's going to have to be a lot of sacrifice and role management that may result in half the young core asking out for larger roles elsewhere, or their talent withering away in Washington deep in the roster. I know I'm not doing a good job at selling you their potential, but the incredible amount of youthful athleticism mixed with the shooting and size on this roster makes them at bare minimum a competent regular season competitor worthy of the 10th seed.
Takes it down. What a move and finish by the #1 pick, AJ DeBonta.
I actually wasn't going to include the Bulls initially, as it only made the Claxton deal when I was going through the teams to include in the video. And then I remember they also picked up Norman Powell for agency. And on top of that, they of course drafted Caleb Wilson #4. I'm not saying they have the potential to be a top 5 seed in the East next season, but if we're speaking of the sheer depth and conference-wide talent, I feel like the Bulls definitely should be included. We saw early into the regular season how pace and ball movement on offense, as well as funneling shots into bad shooters and playing as a united wall in defense, really worked for the Bulls. They shocked the NBA with a scorching 5-0 undefeated kickstart. I'm not saying that they can actually replicate that showing and then maintain that caliber of potency, but what I am saying is that they're an incredibly active and lengthy roster, being capable of driving and kicking at the highest level with high success. Then when you add a lob-catching, defensively adept big in Nicholas Claxton, as well as one of the league's best role-player shot creators in Norman Powell, you get an extra dimension on both ends of the ball that, at bare minimum, brings you back to your regularly scheduled play in hoops.
2%.
Oh, he's going to block.
Ill-advised pass leads to, Caleb Wilson.
For the Pacers at the 14th seed in the East last season, they definitely could have been at bare minimum playing caliber if they weren't taking to an acquire an A-list asset in the draft to recruit whenever Halliburton fully recovered and returned. I understand the Pacers are probably not replicating the absolute wizardry that they sparked last postseason, but that same core is still returning outside of Mathurin and Turner. The addition of Zubac gives you a genuine starting level caliber big man to compete with competitive teams with his above average interior defense rebounding, while picking up Oubre gives you an Obi Toppin-esque skill set, just on a cheaper price with a better defensive motor. I know this might not seem big, with them trading away Cam Jones away for Braden Smith as one of my favorite draft additions in quotation marks, and I think he can actually be a genuine backcourt contributor for Indiana entering the 26-27 regular season. They might have to shift more towards the half-court game with Zubac in the lineup instead of Turner, but you best bet that whenever it's in the small ball lineups,
That these Pacers are paying attention.
okay, now we start to shave off at the franchise who generally made a big splash. I understand that Celtics did take a step back in talent while taking a step forward in age by subtracting Jaylen Brown and adding Paul George, but there's definitely more to the differences from this past season and the upcoming season. I did speak on the Celtics in my most recent video, so I like to discuss two main things: the Mitchell Robinson addition as well as the Payton Pritchard remarks. Mitch Robinson's come off a championship campaign from your rivals, so you killed two birds with one stone by adding one of the best offensive rebounders in the league to add to your already incredible offensive rebounding team, while also taking away a key asset from a highly probable postseason opponent. I'd assume Money Mitch would be starting due to the contract he signed being higher than Kata's, but I could also see him coming off the bench to prevent free throws coming off of the board. While we're on the topic of the Celtics and Knicks connections, there's been reports that trading Jaylen Brown away was also to try and transform one of the best contracts in the NBA, Payton Pritchard, into a white Jalen Brunson as a full-time starter. I'm going to be completely honest, Brunson making that leap at 26 years old was plausible, but Pritchard suddenly averaging 20-plus points per game at 28 years old doesn't mean he's making a genuine leap, and it could mean that he's just simply shooting more with less efficiency. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that I can't see Pritchard making a genuine jump in output without sacrificing even more efficiency, defensive effort, and turnover prevention. I will note that Pritchard was actually incredible whenever Jaylen Brown was off the court and he was on the court as the primary ball handler, but hey, we'll see. I do also want to say that adding Paul George as an off-ball and even a serviceable on-ball defender for this team is actually better than Jaylen Brown. While Jaylen Brown's mix of mobility, strength, and sturdiness make him a very potent point-of-attack defender, Paul George is very active off the ball while also being a serviceable on-ball defender, while also spending more energy on that side of the ball on a more consistent basis. The Celtics are almost always a really good regular season team due to them having incredible spacing and a talent advantage, but that model definitely could change this upcoming season.
Tatum, Butter.
Since we spoke about the team that traded away Jaylen Brown, let's just go ahead and speak on the team who received them. This segment's going to be very short due to me, again, already making a video. Yes, this is indeed a shameless plug. This entire video is a shameless plug. This team could be insanely versatile offensively depending on the movement of the stars off ball and how quickly they can spark consistent chemistry. With your top three, top four if you want to include Vita Edgecombe, being clear score force identities, the ball movement, cohesion, and energy can potentially be hollow during every single regular season game and more potentially during the postseason. I did say picking up Simons was a great addition in my Jaylen Brown trade video, but considering you also drafted LeBaron Fallon as well as already having the backcourt of your future, I'm kind of confused now, especially when you consider Simons is also heavy score first and kind of a shot chucker at times. After losing Oubre in free agency, the depth on the wing and in the front court is definitely still an issue, and even more so in fact, and obviously whenever Embiid goes down, whether due to injury or he's off the bench, you don't even have an Andre Drummond to rely on for basic screening and board collecting. Overall, I do think this team will win games like the 24-25 Boston Celtics, just simply making more shots and having more talent on the roster, even if they're outcoached, don't create as many open looks.
Levitating and the foul.
You play defensive juggernauts, and I guess these last two teams are for you. I'm just not realizing that I maybe shouldn't have made individual videos on teams if I was going to make this video eventually, but let's get back on topic. The Raptors trade away modern-day DeMar DeRozan, Brandon Ingram, their first-round pick in Grady, as well as draft capital taking Kawhi Leonard again. Everyone said it by now, but that flood of defensive deterrence on the perimeter, as well as having a vertical pop that racks up crazy blocks from a variety of guys on the Raptors, makes him one of the most dangerous defenders on paper. Yeah, Kawhi's foot speed on the perimeter and overall athleticism have dwindled, but it's not like he's a liability out there on the perimeter now. And don't forget, he still has that freakish wingspan and those jumbo hands. Scotty and CMB are 1 to 5 defenders on a nightly basis, filling all the boxes I stated earlier while also having insane core strength plus having pickpocket ability similar to that of Kawhi. The offense can still definitely be clunky at times, having a very limited shooting core outside of Quickly and Jacoby Walter, but the athleticism, ball movement, and GOAT caliber shot making from Kawhi Leonard can easily get you through an entire postseason.
That was a monster dunk on that one.
Oh, drive by slow-mo.
Yes, I did leave the team to trade for Giannis for last. Miami gave one of the biggest hauls for Giannis with Bobby Portis, on top of losing Norman Powell in free agency, who we discussed earlier. Key departure to a guy like Kyle Hero, who had an insane playing performance against the Hornets, and Jaime Jaquez, who was an incredible rotation piece as someone who fit seamlessly into the Heat's driving kick offense last season. The strengths of Giannis are obvious, having one-on-one charging power when driving from the perimeter, remarkable strength, all while having a good handle, change of direction for his size, and being an elite playmaker at this point of his career. Bobby Portis gives you energy, off-bench scoring, and rebounding, so the front court is now officially secure with those two alongside Bam. And while we're on the topic of guys like Giannis and Bam, I would like to know that this defense, top to bottom, has the ceiling of being the number one defense. And if they're the number one defense, that means they would be able to overthrow OKC's dominance on the end of the ball. Giannis' foot speed and perimeter defense have slightly regressed due to foot injuries, lower body injuries, and age, just mileage on his body. I'm aware. But he's not a liability out there on the perimeter. And he's still an all-defensive caliber rim protector with his frame on top of his physical tools that I mentioned earlier. Bam gives you genuine 1-5 defending on top of extra rim protection. And then you add Davion Mitchell and Aaron Wiggins as point-of-attack defenders, and I think you can understand the model of this team. Energy, physicality, length, and size. Heat culture at his finest. The offense, specifically the spacing, has been the proclaimed issue for the Heat. And while I don't disagree, I don't particularly agree either. Davion Mitchell shot 39.5% from three this past season, while shooting 44.7% for the 24-25 regular season. Andrew Wiggins just shot 41.4% from three, while shooting around league average of 36% for the 24-25 regular season. On top of the Tim Hardaway Jr. side away, you get an incredible shooter who is going to shoot the ball at high volume, while also getting some on-ball shoots from him. The real issue for this team will be off-bench scoring, ball handling, health, and how they can navigate the business with Giannis finally as the heart and soul of it all.
What you got? Bobby, what you got? Oh, Bobby's nice.
Do I think there's a reason for the sudden resurgence of the Eastern Conference and just how deep the conference will be next season? Yes, there are two main reasons that I have. One is with how the Knicks won as not really being a quote-unquote juggernaut like some of the Western Conference teams were, every single other franchises now seeing themselves as contenders or maybe a one trade away or some internal development away from a championship or a deep postseason run. The second one is obviously the new lottery 3-2-1 system and the relegation zone being within the bottom of the standings. And now you don't want to be in that bottom of the standings. You don't want to be the worst team in the league. So now you actually have to be somewhat competitive, but just outside that play-in range in order to get maximum lottery value. I actually do have some opinions on the Western Conference, but that will actually be a video for another day.